Hello and welcome back to KnowHow Academy. This is Coach Junaid. If your dream is to become a successful SQL developer, then your first hurdle is to crack the job interview for that. Because without cracking that job interview, you cannot land the SQL developer job. So, in this video, we are going to cover things that you really need to know about how to crack a job interview. The first thing that we are going to discuss here is what you need to showcase in the interview, what you exactly need to highlight and what you need to do in that interview. And also we will get to know why a job description is crucial for the interview. And we are going to discuss a sample job description as well. I am going to show you a SQL job description, and based on that we will learn how to prepare for the SQL job interview. So we will learn how to take help from a job description to prepare for the SQL job interview. And we will also know how to find out what technical and behavioral questions you may be asked in that SQL interview. So yes, we are going to learn that how to find out what questions you might be asked in your interview. And let me tell you, 99% there will be accuracy that the questions which I am going to tell you based on the job description, you will face the same questions in your interview. And we will also discuss how to answer to impress the interviewer. What is a unique approach to answer those technical and behavioral questions so that you can impress the interviewer and finally you can land that SQL developer job. So let's begin with what do you need to showcase in a job interview? What exactly you need to highlight in that interview? So the first thing, please understand that you need to show your exceptional communication and presentation skills. It doesn't matter if you have all the technical knowledge, if you have all the skills, because in the interview you need to present yourself, you need to communicate, you need to tell them what kind of skills you have and what you can do for them. So you need to communicate and present yourself. So you need to showcase your exceptional communication and presentation skills. Second thing, yes, you need to show your technical skills, what kind of knowledge that you have got, what kind of skills that you have got, and how you can help the company to solve their problems and do that responsibilities that they are looking for with the help of your technical skills. The third thing that you need to show there in the interview is of course your knowledge, but please understand, as you can see in the bracket, it's not only the knowledge but you need to showcase your applied knowledge. There is a difference between knowledge and the applied knowledge. Knowledge means you know how the things works, okay, but applied knowledge means you have already done that, you have already applied your knowledge and you know how that thing works and what will be the outcome of that. Okay, so the interviewer wants to hear your applied knowledge. Okay, whatever knowledge you have got, whether you have applied it or not, and if you have applied that knowledge, what was the outcome of that. So you need to showcase your applied knowledge. Then of course you have to showcase your experience, if you have got any experience or if you have done any projects or internships, you have to talk about them in your interview. Then it's very important that you show your passion and your enthusiasm for the role, for the job that you're applying for. You have to show that you are really passionate about this job and it's you really love to do this thing. So you need to show your enthusiasm for the role, but please understand, do not forget that you just don't need to show your passion and enthusiasm for the role, but you also need to show your genuine interest in the company, because recruiters and the employers and the interviewers know that you are there for the job, not for the company. So you need to, so if you want to stand out from the crowd, then you need to show your genuine interest in the company, and for that you will have to do research about the company, that why you want to join that company. And you need to, most importantly, you need to sell yourself. So when you are in the interview, you don't just have to introduce yourself, or you just don't need to answer their questions. Okay, so while answering their questions, while introducing yourself, you need to sell yourself. Okay, then only you are going to get that job. For example, if you want to sell a product, what you will do, you will talk about the benefits of that product and you will give the best demonstration and presentation about that product, so the potential customer can feel like this is the best product I want to have. So when you are in the interview, you need to sell yourself. So you need to talk about all the benefits that company is going to have if they hire you, and what kind of problems that you can solve for that company, and how overall you are going to be beneficial for that company. So you have to give the best presentation demonstration about yourself, so that the interviewers feel like this is the candidate, this is the ideal candidate that we want to hire for this role. So you need to sell yourself. Now let's talk about why job description is crucial for the interview. First thing, you need to understand that the job description explain the roles and the responsibilities. Okay, so thing is that job description is a document which is shared by the employers, by the recruiters, by the interviewers before they conduct the interview. So a job description is the requirement. Okay, a job description is what a company is looking for in an ideal candidate. Okay, so you need to understand the job requirements. Okay, so based on the job description you can understand the job requirements, what are the skills required for that job, what are the responsibilities that you need to perform. So if you match that, then only you are going to be a fit for that role, and you need to talk about all those roles and responsibilities once you are in the interview. And of course, with the help of job description, you can prepare well for your interview. You can really prepare well, because your entire interview will be based on, will stick around the job description. And job description will help you in everything in your entire interview. It will help you to introduce yourself well, it will help you to find out the technical questions and find out the behavioral questions, and not only find out the questions, but also it will help you to answer that questions based on the job description, because job description is everything about an opening, everything about a vacancy. So now we are going to discuss a sample and exemplary SQL developer job description, and based on that we will understand how you need to introduce yourself, how you can find out the questions, how you can give the answers based on the job description, overall how you can get success in the job interview based on the job description. So this is a very crucial part of this video. You need to understand this well. So I'm just taking a sample SQL developer role. Okay, so the job description goes like this. Okay, so you need to design and development of SQL databases. This is the first requirement. Second thing, write and optimize SQL queries to retrieve and manipulate the data. Collaborate with the other teams and stakeholders to understand data requirements and implement necessary changes. So if you are a SQL developer, I hope you are getting this job description and you can relate with this job description, that these are the roles and responsibilities mostly you have to perform in a SQL developer role. Analyze and optimize existing SQL queries for improved performance. Proficient in writing joins, subqueries, stored procedures, and other SQL queries. In-depth knowledge of data integration and the ETL process. Strong problem solving and analytical skills. Should be able to work independently. So this is the job description for the SQL developer role. This is just a sample job description, but I know mostly when you are going to face the real job interview, you are going to face a similar job description in that interview. So now what you need to do, the first thing, you need to go through this job description, you need to analyze it, you need to understand it well, and you need to fetch the keywords from this job description. And based on these keywords, first you will create your introduction. Second thing, we will get to know how to find out the questions based on this particular job description and how you can answer them well. Okay, so let's get started. So first thing, what you need to do, the first questions which you are going to face in your interview is of course going to be, tell me something about yourself, or can you introduce yourself. So when they ask you these questions, you don't have to say anything from your personal life or from your personal profile, or don't just say what you want to say, you need to speak what the interviewer wants to hear. And let me tell you once again, the interviewer wants to hear about the job description because they have shared their requirements. So if you want to get that job, you need to talk about all these requirements and you need to convince them that you can perform the roles and the responsibilities which are mentioned in the job description. So you need to talk about these points which are mentioned in the job description in your introduction. So this is how you can introduce yourself. So first you can start by saying this: thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm really happy to be here and to be interviewed by you for this position for the SQL developer role. Let me tell you that I want to apply for this job because first thing, when I have gone through your job description, I felt like this job is meant for me because most of the requirements which are mentioned in the job description, I fulfill them. I have those qualities and I can perform those roles and responsibilities. So first thing, I'm good at designing and development of SQL databases. I have already created many databases and I have designed many databases, and I'm really good at writing and optimizing the SQL queries to retrieve and manipulate the data. Okay, so first thing, being a SQL developer, you need to be good at writing and optimizing the SQL queries. And I'm not only good at the technical things, but let me tell you, I'm also good as a team player. I can collaborate with the other teams and the stakeholders, and I can understand their data requirements and implement necessary changes. So the thing is that I have great communication skills. I have got good interpersonal skills, so it helps me to collaborate with the other team members and stakeholders, and it helps me to communicate well with them and understand their requirements. And I'm good at analyzing and optimizing the existing SQL queries to improve the performance, the overall performance, and I have done it in my previous job. I'm also doing this thing in my current role. And as an SQL developer, there are queries which you need to be really good at. So I'm good at writing joins, I'm good at writing subqueries, stored procedure, and many other important queries. Okay, so I'm really good at that. And I have good knowledge of data integration, the ETL process. I know how to do the entire ETL process. And one thing, what I believe is, to be a SQL developer, the one thing you need to have is the problem solving skills. And I can tell you, without problem solving skills, nobody can become a SQL developer, because you have to solve the data problems, you have to solve the requirements problem. So your job is to solve the problems throughout the day. And I can tell you, I'm good at analyzing the data and solving the problems. And most importantly, I want to tell you that I'm a good team player, but as well, I can work as an independent player as well. So I can work as an individual independently, I can work also in the team. So if you see this, what I have done, simply I didn't say anything from my side. I just used this job description, and based on the keywords and the statements which are there in the job description, I introduce myself, because that is what the interviewer wants to hear. So this is how you need to introduce yourself. And this is not only introducing yourself, but by doing this you will be able to sell yourself. So if you are given any job description, you have to do the same thing. Just use that job description, and based on that you have to introduce yourself. As I told you, you don't just need to introduce, but you need to sell yourself based on the job description, and we have already discussed that. Now we will discuss that based on this job description, what kind of technical questions or direct questions you might face. Okay, so you remember the job description. So based on the job description, I tried to find out a few questions which will definitely be asked to you in the job interview if this is the job description. So if you remember the job description, so based on this job description, the first questions you might be asked is, what strategies would you apply to optimize the performance of a large SQL database? Because this requirement was there in the job description. Okay, because this was this particular requirement was mentioned in the job description. So based on that, you might be asked this kind of questions, that what strategies would you apply to optimize the performance of a large SQL database. So you need to talk about that what strategies would you apply. But now please understand one thing, because I'm also telling you how to answer this question. So don't tell them what strategies you would apply, but you need to share your past experiences here, that previously when you were working on a large SQL databases, so what strategies did you apply there to optimize the performance. Okay, so you have to share your experience, you have to share your applied knowledge, because if you will say I'm going to apply these strategies, then this will be just sharing your knowledge. But if you talk about that I have already applied these strategies in the past while working on a large SQL database, and this is how I was successfully able to optimize the performance of that database. So you have to talk about your experience, previously applied strategies. I hope you got it. Let's talk about the second question. The second question you might be facing in that interview is like, can you give an example where you had to optimize a complex SQL query for better performance? What steps did you take? Now, these questions I've already mentioned, you have to talk about what steps did you take, not what steps you are going to take. Please understand, this is the big difference, okay, between the people who get selected and who get rejected in the interview. Because those who get selected talk about their applied knowledge, and those who get rejected, they only share their knowledge that this is how they are going to do it, but there is no data to support what they are saying. There is no evidence for that. So when you talk about your applied knowledge, so it is already proved that you have applied that, and that was the outcome of that. The third question you might be faced based on that, explain the differences between inner join and the left join, and when would you use one over the other. So here, because in the job description this joins and subqueries and was there in the job description, this was mentioned, so based on that 100% you will face a question. It might be based on the joins, subqueries, or stored procedure. Okay, so I'm taking example of joins, but I would recommend you that you prepare three examples, one for the join, one for the subqueries, and one for the stored procedure, because you don't know on what point they are going to ask you the questions. Because I'm taking here joins, but they might ask you about the stored procedure or maybe the subqueries or any other queries. So you need to be prepared for that. Fourth questions you might face in the technical questions based on the job description would be, what is the purpose and benefits of using stored procedures in SQL database? So I've already covered that as stored procedures as well. And can you outline the steps involved in an ETL process? Because ETL process was mentioned in the job description, so 100% you will face a question based on that. So can you outline the steps involved in an ETL process, and how do you ensure data integrity during this process? So again, you have to talk about your previous experience. You have to share your applied knowledge. Don't say that this is how I'm going to do the ETL process, and this is how I'm going to ensure the data integrity during this process. You have to talk about this is how I have done this in the past. Okay, so why you need to talk about your previous experience and your applied knowledge, so that it is proof that you have already done that, you are an experienced person. Even if you are a fresher, you can talk about that you have done this in the projects, you have done this in the internships, but please use this language that you have done in the past, in your previous project, previous internships, previous job, this is how you have done it. Talk about that. So now next, after technical questions, the next thing that you will face would be the behavioral questions. Okay, so they ask you behavioral questions to test your behavior, to test your soft skills, to test your problem solving skills, conflict resolution skills, interpersonal skills, communication skills, your team player skills. So that is why they ask the behavioral questions as well. So you don't only have to prepare for the technical questions, but you also need to prepare for the behavioral questions. Okay, so based on the job description, you might face this kind of HR or behavioral questions in your SQL interview. The first is, how do you collaborate with the other teams and stakeholders to understand data requirements for new projects? So now here, by this questions, they are trying to ask you, they are trying to know what is your collaboration approaches, what would be your interpersonal skills, and how would you communicate and how would you understand their requirements. Okay, so by asking this one question, they are trying to assess so many soft skills. The second question might be, what kind of challenges you encountered while working with the SQL databases and how did you resolve that? So now by asking these questions, they are trying to assess your problem solving skills. Okay, so they want to know what kind of challenges did you face and how did you overcome that. That means what kind of problems did you face and how did you overcome them. So they want to know your problem solving approach by asking this question. The third question they might ask you is, are you an independent player or a team player? Now please understand, this question is very tricky. Okay, in order to collaborate with the teams, you need to have the team player skills, but when you are working on your databases, when you're working individually, you need to be an independent player. And if you remember in the job description, the last point was that you need to be able to work independently. So here, of course, you need to talk about your team player skills here, but then you need to put more emphasis on your independent, on how you are going to work as an independent player and how good you are to work as an independent player, because it is their requirement. They have mentioned this thing. So now here you cannot talk much about your team player skills, but you need to talk more about your working style as an independent player. So this is how you can prepare for your SQL interview based on the job descriptions. This is how, as I told you, you need to introduce yourself. You need to introduce yourself, or you need to sell yourself, and how to find out the technical questions, how to find out the behavioral questions, and more importantly, as I told you, how to answer the questions. Always talk about your previous experience, always talk about how you have done the things in the past, always talk about your applied knowledge. Okay, so I hope this video will help you in your next SQL job interview, so you can prepare based on that. And if you have any questions for me, you can definitely ask me in the comment section. I would definitely love to address your questions and help you and guide you in that. Thank you so much for choosing KnowHow Academy.